Hey y'all. How's everyone doing? Not me yawning already. Therefore, the live has started. And I'm getting the notification on time. Hey y'all. Hello everyone. Good evening. Good evening. It is our monthly book club discussion. I'm not going to take too long with any introductions because I feel like we've read a lot for this month. Um, and I'm sure there's lots to discuss from everyone, from all points. Because this month we ended up reading Eve by Victor Laval, Volume 1. We read Hotel Dare, and we read volumes 1 and 2 of Malika. I've been saying Malika, but it's definitely Malika, Warrior Queen. Um, and then I started reading some extra stuff in the unique universe, whatever it's called, but we'll get into that. So, how's everyone doing today? Let's do a quick check in and then we'll start with ratings and thoughts. I'm still getting over a cold, so I'm not feeling 100%. Still not feeling 100%. Um, but yeah, I'm good. I'm good. I'm good, but not good at the same time. In the sense that like I'm clearly you could still hear, which is interesting because I haven't been congested all day. But I feel like now nighttime's always the worst whenever I'm sick. I feel like nighttime is when I feel the most miserable. I don't know if anybody else is like that, but I feel most miserable at nighttime, and I'm super duper congested right now. So just trying to stay hydrated and keep it together. Thanks for asking, Allison. Glad to know you're doing great, Jessica. Yeah, thank you, Ulysses. I was like, maybe is it me? Is it a me thing? Like, am I it? Am I the one that feels horrible at night? Because I've felt like pretty much like the same, like pretty even level throughout the day. But now that night's kicking in, it's like my body is like, girl, fuck you. So after we finish this live, which I'm not gonna try to hold us for past like an hour, to be quite honest with y'all, because I don't feel 100%. I'm gonna take my medicine and like let it do its business and knock me the hell out. All right, let's start with ratings. What would you rate? And well, I don't know if I want to. Y'all don't have to put it in any particular order if you feel like typing it out. Because I'm actually still trying to figure out what I want to rate any of my stuff. Yeah, my asthma's starting to act worse too. By the way, my asthma has been fine all day today, and now at night, now my chest wants to be like acting a little funny, which is it's chef's kiss. Let's start with Hotel Dare because I want to save the Malika stuff for the end because I have lots of thoughts about that. Let's start with Hotel Dare. I'm gonna give Hotel Dare 4 stars to Jessica. Like, um, I was shocked because I believe that Hotel Dare and Eve were both done by Kaboom, which Kaboom is they're a pretty good indie um, publisher for me. I haven't read a lot for Kaboom in a while, but Hotel Dare was pretty good. I was pretty shocked about how much I ended up enjoying Hotel Dare. I think that the reason why I wouldn't go higher than a 4 is because I felt like the story needed a little bit more development in terms of the family structure. So we know that it's a blended family. They're going to this hotel where their grandmother lives, and there's some magical elements attached to it, which I like, which the writer said that he drew from his experiences in Mexico, which I really, really liked. But I felt like there could have been just a little bit more back matter to make the story feel a little bit more robust. But the magical elements that were introduced, I love like it was like a semi like portal fantasy, which I find that I do enjoy portal fantasies. It's a new kind of realization for me, but I was surprised by the fact that it turned into a portal fantasy. Um, I literally thought that it was just going to be something about like the hotel, like horror, like something happening in the hotel, and so the fantastical elements is not what I necessarily expected. But because the emphasis was on family, and particularly like blended family, I really wanted a little bit more. Like, how did Charlotte? Like, we know that Charlotte is adopted, but we don't know like the circumstances of that. Um, we know that there's kind of like some fractured relationship between the grandmother and the father. And then, of course, there's some further like fractured relationships between the grandmother and her daughter, and then the husband. Like, so there's a lot of like family essence to this. And I wish that dog next door would shut the fuck up. That girl irritates that dog so much. And then he goes on a tirade and he does not shut up. Now she's yelling at him. Um, but I just felt like there was more that was needed. Yeah, it did. It definitely it felt rushed. Um I think the four really for me is also coming from a place of like there was a lot of potential. Yes, it's next door. I'm sorry, I'll keep interrupting myself, but like he's so fucking loud and that little girl irritates the hell out of that dog. That dog don't like to be bothered. And she comes home and she irritates the fuck out of that dog, and then he won't shut up. It takes him forever to go through this course of irritation, and then I can't think because he's so fucking loud. Like, it's so aggravating. And then when they put him outside, like I can hear him through my window in my room. It's aggy as hell. But yeah, I do feel like it was rushed. I don't know about y'all, but the ending the ending threw me too. I don't know if like I don't know how y'all felt about the ending, because clearly the grandfather had gone through so much with like the jumping in between portals that he ends up losing parts of his memory. And I'm not sure if that was health related, especially because of the fact that the grandmother was saying how much like she needed the mask in order to protect her between jumping in between the different worlds. And I'm guessing that him jumping affected his memory, but I do feel like I almost feel like there should have been a volume two. I don't know if this is me just kind of wanting more of the story, but I feel like there should have been a volume two, because a couple other questions I had is like, all right, so we have all these worlds. She buys this hotel so that she can explore more worlds because it is a portal fantasy, and so each door would give her access to a different world. Um, but like, it's also like, how do these worlds exist? Um, where exactly does this magic necessarily like come from? Like, um how does it benefit us to be like in communication with these worlds? Like, I feel like there was a little bit more that was needed, but the core of this story about family and friendship, and like found family or chosen family, and like the aspects of the magic, now they put the son of a bitch outside. um so I thought like the core elements in that, and the artwork, I really, 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 really love the artwork. It was bright. I really enjoyed the artwork. And but yeah, I don't know. Exactly. Yeah, another volume I think would have done it just it. leaks when they said, yeah, we'll fix him. It's like, fix him how? I feel like there should have been like, I don't know. I agree with you. I feel like that could have been handled better. It is in a lot of ways, Jessica. I do feel like that. Yes. I feel like, y'all correct me if I'm wrong. Did y'all feel like Darwin was coded as possibly being on the spectrum? Or was that me reading too much into it? Because he felt coded like he was, but I couldn't tell. Um I couldn't tell at all, but I felt like that was like the writer's intention, but there wasn't enough there for me to fully say that he was. I don't know. Like that could have been me once again. Okay, cool. All right, good. So it wasn't just me. It wasn't just me that got that. Okay, great. I'm not tripping because when I was reading it, I was like, I feel like the writer is trying to code Darwin as being on the spectrum and is not really doing a good job of, making that as apparent. To the grandfather, um, and his memory loss because he didn't remember anybody. But I don't like. Now I feel like I should drop my rating down because I said 4, but I almost feel like I should drop it to a 3.5 because now that I'm kind of like working it out and talking with y'all about it, I almost feel like 2. That relationship dynamic between the grandmother and the daughter, there should have been more there too, because I found it interesting that she spent the entirety um, of her adulthood looking for her husband and then abandons her son. And then the father spent the entirety of his adulthood and the daughter's childhood looking for her. So it just felt like really everybody was just looking for each other, and there was a lot of anger and animosity built up over unfortunate circumstances. Um, the artwork was so good. The magic was so cool. I love that it was a portal fantasy. Um, and I loved all the little creatures and stuff. But I think if I'm being realistic and now talking about it, I think I would probably drop that down to 3.5. But the artwork was great. I think that if it was a volume 2 and everything was like fleshed out and it was more developed, I probably would give volume 2 4 stars. Um, so yeah. Yeah, I definitely could see why you only gave it a 3.5. Like that makes sense to give it a 3.5. And I think that's where I'm gonna fall. But it almost is like, oh, that was a solid start. Like this had so much potential. And I hate that it was only a volume 1 because it does feel like an incomplete story. So it's like, yeah, there's volume 1, great start, great world building, great, initial character development here. But as a whole, it's not a one and done. It doesn't read as a one and done. All right. Let's shift to Eve by Victor Laval. What would you rate that one? I'm not gonna lie to y'all, I was shocked by this one. I'm not gonna tell you whether in a good or a bad way, but I was shocked reading because it's not what I thought. And I'm flip-flopping. I wish I would have like come up with, but I never really feel like I come up with concrete ratings on some of this stuff until I talk it out with y'all. I am flip-flopping between like a 4 and a 4.5. I listen. Okay, so 3.5, the bear freaks you out. 5 stars. Um, Gave it 3 stars. Okay, I'm gonna be honest. I loved it. Okay, let me tell you. I was shocked about how much I loved it. I don't know what I was expecting because Eve wasn't my pick. If I'm not mistaken, I believe both Eve and Hotel Dare were Bree's selections because I my mind had not been like I hadn't been looking at Eve. It wasn't something that was like high on my radar, but I think Bree either had already read it or she was really interested in reading it. I listen, I oh my gosh. I was pleasantly surprised. I had no idea because the cover, you see this little girl and a bear. And the way that it opens up, she is out with these crabs, with the mangroves. And I'm thinking, like, okay, like, I had no idea what I was stepping into. But then even when she was like sitting down with the dad, I was like, oh, this feels like very futuristic. Like clearly something has happened. But when it shifts and you find out like she has been contained in this, and I forget what it's called, that it's contained in this like this thing. I forget what it's called. There's an actual name for this thing where she's submerged in this liquid the entire time. I think my mind was blown from that point on. I think I was hooked from that moment where you find out that none of that is real. Yes, thank you. This yes, 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 yes. That's what I'm looking for. Um, from that moment on, where she's in that chamber and she's let out, I was like, okay, this might be a story that I really enjoy. And I feel like the actual storyline was so relevant. It's so relevant to what we are experiencing right now, I think, with just climate change, that I felt super connected to this story because it was a matter of like humans are destroying the planet and this was a consequence of them fucking around and finding out. It was so relevant and I didn't expect it to be kind of like this. It wasn't even like a very like in your face commentary about climate change, but it was there. It was like the lack of respect that humans had for the planet. In turn, the planet turned on them. But I think what even surprised me more about this whole entire storyline was to find out that Eve was not the first, like was not the only Eve. When I tell y'all, like when it got to the issue where Eve met Eve, and I was like, wait, I'm like, it threw me off and it made me scared because I was like, oh, wait, who were you supposed to trust? Like, who are we supposed to trust? Like, who are we supposed to like trust the AI like this? Yes. Are we supposed to trust the AI bear? Or are we supposed to trust this new Eve? And then to find out that they had literally set this whole system up in hopes that one of them would succeed. Like literally for it to be such a short comic, I think my mind was literally blown at how well this was paced, how well it was written, how well the character development was done, and even just the subtle commentaries that were made. Like it was not in your face, but it was there enough for you to be like, damn, like I feel like this is kind of a warning for all of us. Yeah, it y'all, when I tell you I literally was like, because I was when I read this when I was laying in the bed, and when I got to literally that scene when she shot the bear, I was like, what the fuck? I was like, who's shooting the bear? And then when she was like, hi, I'm you, and I was like, oh shit, she is you. And then like when she laid it out, basically was like, yeah, like we're two of six. I was like, yo, that is why. Yes, 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 yes. This was a huge thing for me too, is that each one of them was different because when she had pointed out, when the older Eve had pointed out, like, hey, you have had some training that I hadn't had. So, like, the water element is training that the younger Eve had that the older one didn't. So, to think that these two adults had essentially planned for any possible circumstance and created as many Eves as they could to try to save the world, I was like, wow, that's interesting. And then even the fact that the AI intelligence was in on it. When it all started to unfold, I was like, wow. I was like, this is actually really, really good. This is really good writing. This is really, really good writing because to have all of this in such a short amount of space and time took such skill. Because even with the bear, it was like, even his story arc was interesting because I keep saying the bear, but it's actually just AI in the form, took the body of the bear. But to even find out that, like, that whole sequence in which she never really met the mom and the dad, like, that was never a thing that happened. She was never really trained. There was never, all of this stuff had been, like, programmed into her mind. She had no knowledge, like, no actual, like, she wasn't physically there at all. And then to find out that the bear was just like, you know what? Your kids, you deserve better, but these adults like don't. I was like, dang. And so he became for me kind of this morally gray character because it's like you're almost not giving them the chance to fix things. And it was like, but can you be really angry with him? Because at the same time, it's like, why should I give them another opportunity to mess this up? Because even though we're dealing with kids saving the world, and I think the bear kind of recognized the innocence associated with like all the Eves as they were young, because he clearly says like, I've done this so many times before, and it's not going to get easier. It's never easy having to kill them because they end up turning. But like, can you be angry with him really 100% when he's like, if we let this happen, I'm giving humans the opportunity to fuck it up again. Like, why should you have this right? You've already abused the planet so much. Why should I allow you to the opportunity to abuse it again? It was such an interesting, like, I think reaction from me as an adult reading that and thinking like, dang, like it's kind of fucked up because you're rooting for them to save the world, but you kind of see where the bear is coming from, where he's like, no, y'all don't deserve this. You had the opportunity to do right. You've been warned. You had all the resources, and you still didn't do what you were supposed to do. So why should I give you a second chance to get it right? Like, why should we allow this to happen? I thought it was a lot of complexity to him, and this giving that bare humanity was a huge thing, because I'm not going to lie, I think that it was such an interesting time jump at the end where she comes back 2 years later and both the older Eve and him like pop out and they're like, he's like, I tried it. Like, I knew my programming told me that I could no longer recognize her as Eve because she hits puberty, which I also thought was interesting and really honestly fucked with my head when I thought about COVID. Because this whole entire virus situation, anytime I see a virus and I see masks now, instantaneously my mind is COVID-19. And that's just, I mean, we're in the midst of a pandemic. And so that's just how my mind now has been conditioned. But I think it's so fascinating, like that alignment with the kids were always going to be fine. And like the same thing that we were hearing at the beginning of the pandemic, and then them hitting puberty is what allowed them to like experience the virus full blown. But that bear saying like, okay, I know like she's hit puberty now, like mentally, um and I know that I shouldn't view her as an Eve, but I know in my heart that she is. And I was like, oh, oh, not the bear having some humanity. It for me felt off only because we don't listen Sunday had no other option to wait. Yeah, yeah, yeah. We aren't. We aren't listening to some. I mean, you have politicians who get on primetime television and tell people that, global warming, climate change is not real, even though we see the effects. Like, days are getting longer as a result of that. I think even him kind of referencing like the polar ice, like the ice caps melting, and that's how that virus was released. Like, there were so many nods to so many different things, and then the biblical reference at the end was the banger for me for it all. Like, I felt like there were some slight feminist, and I could be wrong by this, but I felt like there were some slight feminist undertones in the way that he handled the end, saying that, like, that specific part, which I want to pull up because I don't want to get it wrong, but I thought it was interesting how um, it was Eve who recreates the earth. And that reference at the end where he's like, and on the 880 something day, Eve finally rested. And I was like, interesting approach there, my friend. Hold on, I'm about to pull it up. Because I was not expecting that. I mean, I should have expected that, I think, because of it being called Eve, but I didn't know if Lawal was going to tie that into there at all. But he did, and I must say the artwork was superb. And I'm excited to read this second one. Y'all won't believe how quick I jumped in to Hoopla and was like, where the fuck is that second installment? Because I need more. Which is what Hotel Dare should have been. Hotel Dare should have had that that second volume. I do too, Jessica. I think like yes, thank you. It was almost like a redemption for Eve. Thank you. Okay, like, see, y'all be making me feel validated as fuck sometimes because I feel like sometimes I read too much into things, and then I talk to y'all and I'm like, no. It's more than just me. Yeah, where he says, in the end, man destroyed heavens and earth. The world was without hope, and a virus corrupted the air. And Eve hovered in an isolation tank. But you know the old saying, make a way out of no way. Eve did that. The world didn't go back to normal because the old normal is what killed everyone. It was time for a new normal. The kid helped with that. And on the 800th day, Eve rested. I say she earned it. I was like, okay, here we go. Like, and then that humor at the end, I thought it was so funny. Like this last panel, I don't know if y'all can kind of like see that, where the two Eves are together, when like prior the mother and the father were talking about how they fell in love, and he was like, I sang a song, and I sang it poorly, but I was already in love, and it was Rihanna. It was not what I was expecting. So when she said, we found love in a hopeless place, and she said, what is that? And she said, classical music, I think. And I'm like, damn, y'all, like, think about the fact that that song by Rihanna, to me, like, that's not classical music, but it will eventually be like old school music for some generation, which I don't know. I mean, personally, y'all, like, I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed that one. That was a shocker. I was not expecting the depth. I was not expecting that storytelling because I didn't read much about it going into it. And any knowledge I had of it, it was out the window by the time I sat down to read it. So kind of going in without any prior knowledge and kind of getting that story out of it and how well crafted it was good. It was good. I enjoyed it, and I am excited to read the second one, which is called, and pull it up if I can pull it up because my thing wants to act. Eve, Children of the Moon. So this is just the story continues. Oh, conflict amongst the survivors is dire, even so in the potential for a civil war. Oh, this is another AI. This is but an AI with terrifying origins from deep beneath the sea brings new revelations about the threats they face not only of Earth but beyond. Even her companions face new challenges in a darkness from their past. In this exciting sequel series from the award-winning author and lauded Professor Victor Laval. Huh. That is cool. Okay. I definitely will be reading that one soon. You're right. You're right. And the ending is when she goes in that thing to Paul. No, I did. It felt rushed because I don't think there was enough explanation of how we got from like that communication between the mother and the father and explaining how she would pollinate the planet and how it would kind of bind the continents like back together. I think that was rushed and we didn't get enough detail there because we literally end with the scene with her talking to her mother and father and them ending with that like, oh, you know, we heard the song. I sang the song to her and that's how we felt. I was already in love, blah, 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 blah. And then we like fast forward to 2 years later. So I think that we didn't have to go through the whole 2 years of her like repollinating. But I do think that even if they would have done some splash pages of just seeing the movement that she was making, and seeing, and they did some of that, but I think if they just would have done like a few pages of splash pages to let us know exactly what happened in that 2 year expanse, I think it would have felt a little bit more filled out, to be honest with you. I really do. I think it would have felt a little bit better in that sense. But no, I do agree that that section was a little rushed. But I wonder how much we're going to get. Like you said, I wonder how much we're going to get in the second one. I'm ready to pick it up. All right. So that was probably out of the 4. That was my most surprising of the readings that we did for this month. Like that was the like, wow, shocker, gagged, didn't know that was going to be what that story entailed. Because that cover does not allude to the insides whatsoever. It really doesn't. But that was a really good pick. I enjoyed that. All right. Let's change gears and let's jump into Malika. So we read Malika volumes 1 and 2. Y'all start. Y'all start, because I have some thoughts about Malika, and I almost am pissed at myself for the way that I picked it because I wasn't aware of the flow of the story. We do. Ulysses, I was watching your stories today, and like I looked up the tracking of the way that you're supposed to read it. And I just want you to know I started reading EXO today, and I get what he's trying to do. And I think the idea is great, but I think that he faltered. One, EXO was not as, and we're not going to talk about EXO, y'all, but I'm going to explain how it ties into everything. But I don't think EXO is good as what I've read from him. And I think that Malika Volume 1 was executed better than Malika Volume 2. Okay. So, just love them both. Here for the universe, gave them both 5 stars. So to go and read them in order. Okay. Read the first one, gave it 3 stars. Only read my 1. I was confused. Okay. So if y'all didn't know, Malika is tied to this company called Unique Studios. They are out of Nigeria, um, and they basically have a deal. They've worked out a deal with Dark Horse, who is their distributor and publisher here in the US, which is a big deal because Dark Horse is one of the major publishers. They're not, in terms of sale numbers, they're not as high as someone like Image, DC, or Marvel, but they hold their own, and Dark Horse puts out a lot of great stuff. I think Bree is a huge fan of Dark Horse and some of the stuff that they put out. Um, so basically, from what I've gathered, like I've signed up for his newsletter. I follow him on Instagram, so I kind of got like the insight to a couple of things. Is that he's creating this universe, if y'all didn't know, which I probably should have forewarned everyone, where all of his series are interconnected and take place in the same universe, and they are all going to, which I think it should be out by now, if I'm not mistaken. Let me look. It all comes together into this huge, like, superhero mashup type of situation, which I think should have been released in like February of this year. Yeah, the Oloris, which maybe it came out last year, but that is where all of the heroes that you meet in these individual stories come together. So you don't have to read them in order. Because at one point he was saying like you could just kind of like pick a character, which is the same way that you would do in DC or Marvel, which is, I'm using them because it's a good point of reference, because they're one of those two publishers are the publishers that do like the universe type thing. Image has a couple. We learned that with what's the damn Power Ranger shit that we were reading. Y'all know what comic I'm talking about. The Power Ranger shit. Radiant Black. That stuff, like that's the one that Image has that's really interconnected with their characters and is in this whole entire universe. But I'm gonna continue to use DC and Marvel as a point of reference because it's easier for me, like in terms of explanation. So you can pick a character and just read their story. So you have Ianu, you have the Windmaker, you have Malika, you have EXO. So you have these individual characters where you can just read their storyline, but Unique Studios does have a graphic up on their website. If you just visit their website or if you type in like Unique Studios, Unique Productions, whatever, you will get this graphic on their website that tells you which order to read them in. And so you start off by reading, and Elise, please correct me if I'm wrong, but it is Malika, then it is EXO, then it would be Ianu, then it is Malika again, I believe, then EXO again, and then Ianu again. Windmaker is somewhere in there. My memory is trash, but eventually, like, it all comes into the Aloris, which is where they all are going to be on page. So my recommendation to you is to read about, if you continue on in this universe, to read all about the individual characters first before you dive into that, because that's where you're going to meet them all together in one sitting. Okay, comments. Okay, volume 1, 4.5 stars. EXO, that's what it's called. Yeah, EXO, no, Malika is like 3 at this point. Okay. You separate them as a whole because I couldn't separate them in the brain. Okay. Thinking that, yeah, they're like 3. Well, the first one is well over 300 pages, and then I think volume 2 comes close to 300 pages. Volume 1, 4 stars. Volume 3, Scarlett, I'm kind of like where you are. Where like volume 1 for me was really good, and this was my second time diving into Malika. I didn't finish it the first time I read it, but the second time I feel like things came together a little bit more for me. Um, and so I did enjoy volume one. Volume two had some execution issues for me. What are you trying to do? But the execution failed in EXO. In theory, EXO should have been my favorite because in theory it's fascinating. But the man, yeah. The dialogue it feels very clunky, and I'm probably only maybe 50, 60 pages into EXO, and I put it aside because I wanted to make sure I had Malika volume two finished before we talk tonight. And I'm gonna reread Iyanu. I really enjoyed Iyanu when I first read it a while ago, but now understanding because when I read Iyanu, like all of this was not a thing. I caught wind of them pretty early on, and Iyanu is what caught my attention, and I read that early, and that all of this was not in existence yet. So now knowing what I do know about the publication, I want to go back and read Iyanu because the first time that I read it, I really did enjoy it. But man, EXO was not EXO was not it. I was a little bit confused. I think too with Malika Volume 2, the issue is that they tried to do too much. And that's the difficulty in creating a universe where all of your characters are interconnected and you're trying to create this whole entire thing is that you have to seamlessly weave in any new characters and their backstories and their abilities, their origin. Like it's a whole thing. And I felt like for whatever her name is, Fire and Ice Girl, weaving her into me felt sloppy. The way she was woven into the storyline felt extremely sloppy. And it felt extremely sloppy because there's a whole gap of information missing about Malika. So we're going into this thinking that we're getting and it's not that we don't get a continuation of what happens at the end of Malika Volume 1, but I think that I was expecting Malika Volume 2 to really, really hone in on what happened when she woke up 500 years later. And instead of that being the sole focus, we're also trying to weave in the origin of two characters. Because not only, and three, honestly, when you really want to get technical about it, because not only do we have Elle's story, kind of, not really, but she's dragged in. We have her nephew woven into the context of the story, and then we have her son possibly at the end. So it just, I don't know. Create in any order than putting a big time jump in reference. That, but also in EXO, I don't really, and I haven't finished EXO, so maybe at least maybe you can answer this better than I can. But I don't even know if you truly get clarification on the time jump in EXO or not. I haven't read it far enough to know if she's ever addressed. I know that she's connected to EXO because of the person who built the vehicle that the two of them used toward the end of volume 2 is directly related to a character that's in EXO, and that character's son is a big like, but outside of that, I don't know if she's referenced. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. Okay, read it higher because I like to explain things in between chapters. Yeah, he does do a good job about that. I think in explaining his world, um, I like how he, especially in volume one. Volume one for me, I think was like pinnacle because of the fact that I loved how he was relating it all back to like West African history, ancient civilizations, and like how he took that information and modeled it um, into this world that he's created. And I loved that aspect because when people think about the continent of Africa as a whole, they forget about the rich legacy um, that exist there. The kingdoms, the wealth, the power, because I think people's perception is only wrapped around it in terms of like the damage that was done as a result of imperialism, colonialism. So I like that because people often don't recognize that aspect of it. And I love that it's specifically a focus on West Africa, but I don't feel like that same energy and like passion for the historical element that I got in volume one could exist in volume two because we fast forwarded 500 years into the future. And so you can't really draw, and this is for me personally, you can't really draw like those parts that I was really, really interested in from a historical standpoint. They wouldn't align with what he was doing in that second volume. Yeah, it was a lot. I think, and I to be honest with you, I feel like it was too much. To be quite frank, I almost wish he would have used volume two to solely focus on Malika getting adjusted to being 500 years in the fucking future. Because when we jump into volume two, how is she, as someone from ancient civilization, right, acclimated to the future? Like, all of that is missing from the context of the story. We have no idea how she has gotten acclimated to this where technology exists, right? We're going from someone who's living in 15th century, jumping 500 years into the future where we have cars, TVs, like automatic weapon. Like, how did she process any of that? And like, we know that this guy, this doctor that is prevalent in XO guides her, but you don't really know in which way he guides her by picking up that. I don't know. I just felt like it was really, really poor execution in volume two for me. Okay, Windmaker volume one. That's what I was like, where does Windmaker come in? Fire Frost. That's her name. Fire Frost. I was like, Fire Ice, whatever her name is. Fire fucking Frost. That is her name. Um, it is clunky. I think that he's trying so hard to create an interconnectedness that would represent a different take on superheroes, which I like. I like the idea of somebody having, I don't want to say a claim, but someone doing something with superheroes outside of DC and Marvel. Like, I think that was what attracted a lot of us to like Radiant Black. It was very superhero-esque. I mean, very nostalgic for like Power Rangers, and we were getting this interconnectedness with different superheroes through the creator. But I also feel like he needed more material. Like, let's be honest, DC and Marvel universes, as problematic as they can be, as many issues as they've had, as difficult it is to jump in, there's a lot of time and pacing that goes into creating what is known as, 616, or, DC's kind of hooked on their Infinite Frontier shit now. Like, there's a lot of pacing and time and careful storytelling, although they do it wrong too. I don't think he gave himself enough material to do that. I think introducing these superheroes in such a short amount of collections is what made it so difficult, because I think it almost feels like he was rushing to get to that point where he could have his, his X-Men moment or his Justice League moment, or his Avengers moment. Like, that's what I felt like he was building up to, but you haven't done enough groundwork to get these characters to that moment. Your lore is not developed enough. Like, I feel like it's there, it's interesting, but I wanted him to dive a little deeper. And if he would have dove a little deeper and took more time to really flesh out some of these things, then I think I would appreciate getting to that moment more than what I feel like now. Not to say that I wouldn't, because, like, for example, like I said, I liked Malika Volume 1, right? I thought the pacing was good with that. I felt like he took his time with her as a character. I felt like the backstory was really interesting. Like the mythology behind it was really, really interesting. I liked Ianu a lot. I felt like the pacing and storytelling in that was really, really good. But this rushing of trying to introduce all these other characters and trying to find ways to make sure that they are connected to each other in a way that makes sense to us as a reader is what's going to be the pitfall, I think, of when I eventually do get to that final volume where they all meet at once. I think I don't think I'm going to necessarily enjoy every aspect of that, because it's going to feel like it was thrown together and it was a rush type of situation. So we meet Zara, we meet in the beginning. Okay. See, I don't feel like that's enough. Like when I was hooked and loved. Yes. It was, to be honest with you, it was a history and the folklore for me that was like, because it's not something that we typically see um in comics. And it was nice that we were getting these not only just like a fantastical element or potential superhero element, but we were getting so much that was from a non-Western perspective. And that's not something that we often see in comics. Yes, we get comics that are translated and yada yada yada, but still, at the end of the day, a lot of them still do come from Western perspectives. And so, to get a comic that is not from a Western perspective, that has all of this rich history and folklore attached to it, I was sucked the fuck in for volume 1. And I feel like that energy and that vibrance that I loved about volume 1 was not maintained in volume 2, which is so unfortunate. Um, it's just like, I don't know. That too. I don't, if her uncle gave her a translator, I miss that too, to be honest with you, because I don't know. There's unanswered questions. The moment that he decided that he was going to transport her 500 years into the future and not really look at how that would work in the grand scheme of things was the mistake. That was a huge mistake, because there's a lot of unanswered questions about that, like a whole lot. Oh, Lauren, this is not a general live discussion, my love. This is a book club discussion. Um, but there are other videos on my channel if you want to get recommendations. Um, EXO is EXO is over 300 pages. Ianu is not. Ianu is shorter. And I think all of Ianu's volumes are pretty short, like under 200 pages. But I'm pretty sure all of EXO's are long. And their mash of the Windmaker, let's see. The Windmaker is shorter too. Either under 200 pages or right at. And then the Aloris, where they all meet up together, um, that's under 200 pages. So I'm not sure why Malika and EXO are so long, but not sure. Because the way he connects Yano is awesome. Ah. Oh. See, like, I don't like that. I don't like that. I don't like that. I don't like that. Um, Yano does not feel part of this universe. It might be later on, but right now we are not very far into Yano. Ugh. Well, that's unfortunate because that's Yano is like one of my favorite characters. So, damn. Okay. Well, you know what? I probably sometime this week I will end up finishing XO. To be honest with you, just so I can move on and see how this is all going to play out. Because I feel like after making it through XO, like they're not like the rest of the volumes are not long at all, which is an interesting choice. I'm trying to figure out, and I wonder if XO and Malika were like his pieces where he could start introducing canon characters. And then he kind of just goes with it for the rest. And it's interesting because he does all of the writing. I think, at least he's credited as doing all of the writing for every single one of these. And then he brings on different illustrators. But damn. That provides the cuff that heals. Cesara's dad is a scientist who's referenced in volume 2 that provides the cuff that heals Malika. That could be a translator. True. Good point. And the fact that his charm, we spent 300 pages in the past on something. Yes. Windmaker is interesting because there's also no explanation of how her child survived. Because the original Windmaker, because I was trying to figure out how that was going to work. Because I knew that Windmaker existed as a volume of something, right? I knew it did. So when I was reading Malika Volume 1, and we find out that that is her husband, right? Which I thought was a great reveal when they were fighting. And then it was like, basically like, how can I be your lover? I'm your husband. I was like, swoon. And I loved him with her because I feel like she's very hard. Which circumstances have made her into a hard person. And she must always be strong. I don't know. In that moment, she felt very much like me, or I felt like her, where like the constant need to like be strong, to always like have your guard up and to never show weakness. And then she's meeting this man that shows her like, you have to like let your guard down at least with me. Like, you have to be able to like show compassion. Like you have to be able to like let me love you. And so I really, really loved like their relationship, and him not making it was really, really hard for me. I was shocked because I just loved like the energy that he gave her. I loved just how much he complimented her. They had like very beautiful energies with each other. I don't know, they just felt like such a good match. So him dying was like, I was like, fuck. But then in my head, I was like, okay, well, there's 2 volumes of the Windmaker. And in my head, I was thinking like, well, maybe this is like a flashback to him because he's known as the Windmaker and he has these supernatural abilities. And I'm like, okay, well, maybe we get to know more about his origin story, which I was pissed because that actually, for me, in my mind, mentally, like that would have been perfect. Because granted, when we meet him, we don't really know much about him. This woman literally is married. We don't know anything about it. We're kind of like her people. Her kingdom knows nothing about her marriage. It's been secretive. We don't know anything about this man. We know that he has these magical abilities. We know that they're a really, really good match. We know that they are just the couple, okay? I'm not gonna lie to y'all. Like I was swooning for, Loki was swooning for him, but Because it's always nice to see like complimentary characters like that, where like he's like, ease up, like relax, like I love you. It's okay for you to love me back. I know you love me. It's okay for you to show. They were really really great compliments for each other, and I thought that maybe because we didn't get much of his backstory in the previous in Malika, we didn't get to know much about his backstory in that. I'm thinking like, okay, well, Windmaker, maybe this will give us his origin story. Because we get a little bit of it, but we don't get to really, really know him because he's not, he's not a part of her kingdom. Like that's not where he's from. So when you get to Malika Volume 2, what threw me off, and I don't know if anybody can provide me with some clarification. When it's the news broadcast, right? She says literally on the news broadcast, is this the next Windmaker? I am literally confused by that because if Bass is known as the Windmaker 500 fucking years ago, how can a news broadcaster from the present know about him at all? Because you have to think that people didn't believe when, what's his face? What is that guy's name? Who's really, really into the lore and mythology, and he like informs everybody about Malika because he had read about her, and nobody believed that she was real. Like he got bullied about it, he was made fun about it. Like they made fun of him for like bringing it up and saying that she was real. Um, if that's the case, and nobody believes in the mythology and lore that is Malika, right? How could a news broadcaster know that he existed? Like I'm just confused. I'm confused about why she would be able to reference, is this the new Windmaker? Or I could have read that wrong. Oh yeah, it would have been all the way off. It would have made not a lick of sense. So maybe I almost feel like he shouldn't maybe he shouldn't say that people can kind of read these in any order, because you almost can't. You almost can't read these as individual stories because of how interconnected they are. You miss context for a lot of things. I don't think, I don't know. We'll see. I know. They didn't have to kill him like that. They did not have to kill him like that. They really didn't. Oh, honey, he is my book boyfriend still in death. That is my book. I was like, not him making me feel some type of way. And I don't get book boyfriends like that. There's always like one randomly that I'll come across. Yeah, but I knew that there were people in, but when Charles was saying that she was real, like people were making fun of it, unless I read that wrong, where people were making fun of him. I thought people didn't believe it. So that's why when she said it, I was like, well, do y'all even believe in, like, at what point did we shift? Because I knew Charles believed it, but at what point did everybody else shift from actually believing it and not just it being a thing? I don't know. It just I don't confusing. Yeah, so check out bonus story. You should get more bass in one. Okay. That's okay. Yeah, because I was like, why? I didn't. That was the part I didn't understand, because I was like, so we know that that book exists because that's what Charles was referencing the entire time. That book. That's how he knew about the stones and everything. But and then two, on top of that, I don't know if you, how did the book get digitized, and who wrote it? Did I miss that too? Because I was thinking like, okay, yeah, this book exists, and so it would connect how people would know about Malika, and why Charles would know about Malika and would be able to tell Ellie about the stones and that all of that was real. But who wrote the fucking book and who digitized it? Because who wrote down it? I like literally I don't like gaps in information when it comes to comics because how I always say like the artwork is the driving force in a comic. And you have so little space to tell a story that you have to get it right. And you cannot leave room for, unless it's like an intentional where it's like you kind of interpreted it for yourself. But in this sense, where details are of the essence because you're creating an entire universe and an entire world, like these small details have to like they have to be there, because other than that, like you have too many gaps in information. Like Scarlett said earlier, we literally are seeing Malika have a whole life off page. We know nothing about her life from the time that she woke up and then the time that we see her in Malika Volume 2. This woman has had a child. She was living in an apartment. She had gone on like several crusades, because when she was talking to her uncle, she was talking about how like she had gone through and was like killing people with no fucking mercy, then going into exile. And then it blew my mind because literally that means that she did this 30 years, because he said, for 30 years, you've been ignoring me. She has had 30 years off of page and we don't know shit about it. 30 years? Page of the Charles, he's argued with the African history and prof about a myth and every yeah. That's what I was referencing to, is that he had brought it up and everybody made fun of him for it, but he was like, no, like this shit is real. Oh God. Okay, I had to go back. I gave bad info. You have to read X. EXO has a chapter in the end that introduces Malika. Her intro is via Zara, who is the scientist's daughter, who is also Fury. Okay, so for future reference here, for future reference for us as our little community that reads our comics, and we always do this where we start a series and we're like, we need to read it off page. We need to read it off page. It is necessary to read this stuff in order. So there's no there's no skipping, because clearly there is vital and necessary information that is included in some of these volumes that you won't get if you skip over them. So I'm definitely going to go back and finish EXO. I don't know how much clarification that will provide me, but I think that it will give me something, because because if her intro is via Zara and Zara is Fury, then you have this is, oh gosh, this is a lot, my friends. It's a lot, and I'm not sure how I feel. This is a lot. I may just go through and just read it all, and then maybe do like a review of it at this point. Maybe that's what I need to do. So apparently the book, The History of Adala, is extremely rare. Malika is mentioned briefly as an ally. EXO Volume 2 is supposed to be read before Malika. Jeez, okay. Maybe EXO Volume 2 will give us more context of what happens in Malika Volume 2. So how does it flow then, Ulysses? Is it Malika, EXO, Iyanu, EXO, Malika? Can I give a spoiler of Iyanu in the year 2025? Yes, you can. Spoilers don't bother me. Or do you mean something? I can't read the graphic. Here, Jess, what I'll do is I'll put it in the let me put it in the chat, because I feel like I had it pulled up. or if somebody can get to it before me. So is Fury Iyanu or no? Lord Jesus. Lord. I'm going to put it in here too for a reference, just so it's here for anybody else that wants to pick this up at some point. Just give me a second. I'm going to type it because the lines are super confusing the way that it's drawn. And somebody should be, so you don't know if, see now, I don't got time for that. Is it going to let me space? It probably won't let me drop down, will it, without? Oh, I hate that. Okay, give me a second, y'all. This is not going to be, I don't like the way this is going to look. EXO, Volume 1. Iyanu, Volume 1. And then EXO, Volume 2. Then it's Malika. I could spell. So basically, I need to read EXO Volumes 1 and 2. And then where the fuck does that go? Windmaker Volume 1. That's the way it looks. Then Iyanu. It's Volume 1 and 2? The way it looks to me, it looks like it swoops around and goes Windmaker Volume 1, Iyano Volume 2, Windmaker Volume 2, Iyano Volume 3. So then the lines are confusing as shit. So then Iyanu Volume 2, 8 is Windmaker Volume 2. Then 9 is Iyanu Volume 3. Excuse the F at the end of that. And then the last one is Aloris, which just came out not too long ago. But you know what else? This is, I don't know, when I go on Hoopla and I look it up, y'all, I also see, I don't know if y'all saw this, because I looked them up by creator. There is another one out there that's not listed on this reading list, and it's called The Asiri, Volume 1. I don't know if this is connected or not. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's not interconnected. This one just came out this year. And it's comped as an Afrofuturistic graphic novel that's X-Men meets Attack on Titan. Watch that be interconnected, even though it's not interconnected right now. Because that's just the way that shit's going to work. All right, so I think my final ratings, I'm going to go with, I already wrote a review on Goodreads for Malika, Volume 1. I gave it 4 stars. I'm going to go with giving Malika Volume 2 3 stars. Just because of confusion. No problem. Hopefully it'll help you make like sense of how things are supposed to work. Who knows? And I don't think that they have all books. Let's see. Well, it says he volume one brings all heroes together for a noble cause. Oh, the Asiri verse is something that's completely different. So this is another thing that they're doing. But I promise you, if I'm thinking the way that I'm thinking, it's all going to be fucking interconnected when it's all said and done. Something else that she only mentioned powered ones, PO's XO, which people haven't believed existed. Okay, which she got a couple years ago. I'm gonna go back, y'all, and I'm gonna have to slowly make my way. I might be like really petty since today's the 31st and I know my Hoopla checkouts reset literally tomorrow. I may just go ahead and borrow the rest of them because I have the checkouts and slowly just go ahead and read through it. Because at this point, I feel like none of this is gonna make sense if I don't do that. Yeah, I think he is trying to create like a whole Marvel universe. The X-Men thing is what kind of makes me feel that way because one of my gripes, it's not a gripe, I shouldn't say this. One of the things that I find so interesting, and it's a me thing about Marvel, and I always say this every time I read anything that's X-Men related, is X-Men does not feel like it's a part of the Marvel universe sometimes. It feels like it is the Marvel universe, but it's so complicated that it's its own little offshoot. The same way I feel like Gotham is a part of DC's universe, but Gotham also feels like its own little community of shit because there's so many characters at a house in Gotham that are interconnected. But the X-Men thing, I'm like, are we trying to do an X-Men thing with this Asiri verse? Oh man. Well, we'll see what happens. At least as I know that you're reading all of them, so you message me as you make your way through them if you plan on reading all of them. They're not long. Once you get through Malika and EXO, they're not long at all. Like these are like Eve Hotel Dare length. They're really, really short. All right, y'all. That's gonna be it for me because I've talked myself into having cotton mouth, and I hate the way my mouth feels right now. It feels dry and it feels disgusting. But for next month's live show, it's gonna fall on, pull up a calendar. It should fall on the 28th, which is the last Wednesday of the month. And we are going to be reading all of the Tea Dragon Society books. So volumes 1, 2, and 3. Which those are really, really quick. They're more like on the younger ends, a little bit lighter than what we've been reading these past couple months. So what the fuck did we read? We read Clementine last month. And Spider-Man, the Spider-Man life story. That shit was so... Chip Zdarsky showed his whole ass with that. I was so happy with it. I was so happy with the Spider-Man life story. I'm going to read these. Unlike my problem. I know, me too. Listen, we were all supposed to finish up... What's it called? Radiant Black. Because we were all supposed to read Radiant Red, Radiant Pink, and like I think there's like another volume of Radiant Black, and that I was both like I never followed up on that. I'm lucky pissing myself that I never did follow up on that. I've been keeping up with Something's Killing the Children. I think I'm a volume behind. I haven't been as amped to keep up with House of Slaughter because my husband doesn't write House of Slaughter. People are gonna think like I'm a polygamist out here because, well, there's only two people I call my husband, and that's Jason and James. But I have not read Radiant Red, and I'm so pissed at that. But James is not right, and it took me forever. Somebody had to point it out to me on Goodreads that James plots House of Slaughter, but does not actually write it, and I can't do it. Like, I need to read it because I know it connects back to Something's Killing the Children, but he's not writing it, and I can tell that he's not writing it because I absolutely hate it. Volume 2, and he wrote Volume 1, and I love Volume 1. I thought it was fucking amazing, and Volume 2 was such a striking difference from Volume 1, and then that's when I found that he was not writing, and I was like, I can tell when James is not writing the shit. It hasn't see, like, there are people who like House of Slaughter, and I'm like, I can't do it. I think it gives so much good like background information to everything, and I thought Volume 1 was so, it was good, but it was low-key grimy because we get the backstory of a character that's is no longer living in the main series. But when I got to Volume 2, it turned me off. But I think I'm only one volume behind on Something's Killing the Children. I think. I'm checking now. Because I say that and then I'll look and I'll be like, shit. But let's see, Something's Killing. And of course, Hoopla only wants to show me the issues instead of showing me the trades. Like, why? Yeah, I'm only. Did I already read that? There's no way I'm caught up. I can't be caught up. I refuse to believe that I'm caught up on that. We're about to find out, though. You're absolutely right. I did not see my husband sit down at the desk at home, so he didn't write it. If he didn't write it, I ain't fucking touching it. Y'all know I'm a fiend for James. Okay, so no, I'm not caught up. I have not read Volume 7, which dropped in February, and Volume 8 drops in November. So I'm probably going to try to get Volume 7 out sometime. I mean, yeah, out the way sometime soon so I could be ready when Volume 8 drops. I thought you were caught up on Saga. Oh yeah, Volume 2 has a super, of you're talking about of House of Slaughter? Yeah, it was, because when I first looked at it, I was like, why the hell is this shit so low? And I didn't really go into anybody's like reviews, but I was like, damn, I was like, why is this? Because I gave House of Slaughter Volume 1 5 stars. Literally gave it 5 stars. Got into Volume 2 and gave that bitch 2 stars. I was like, absolutely not. Absolutely fucking not. That was not it. But the rating does go back up on Volume 3, so I'm kind of, I don't know. I may make some questionable decisions. I think I'm caught up on Saga. I think. But I feel like Saga's on another hiatus. And I don't know where I read that or if I'm losing my mind. Which, I mean, that's also a possibility. Not too far from losing all my screws. Um, oh, you read the first issue of Volume 10 with. Did you read that when we all read that first issue that dropped? Okay, I'm caught up because the last volume that dropped was in November of last year, and I'm pretty fucking sure they're on another hiatus. Which sucks because I don't know when he plotted for like 100 and did he plot for 150 issues? I feel like the story was plotted for 150 issues, which is why Goodreads has it all the way up to I think volume 14, if I'm not mistaken. Um, but I'm gonna have to go back probably eventually and reread volume 10 and 11 because it depends on how long this hiatus is. Which I mean, I get it. I mean, because people life and things like that. But I always find myself having to reread or I fall behind when hiatuses happen or I like inevitably forget shit. Like Bitterroot is coming back next year. And I'm about to lose my shit that Bitterroot's finally coming off of hiatus. And it'll be starting back up next year. But to be honest with you, I probably would go back and reread all 3 volumes of Bitterroot for the third fucking time. Because by the time they drop the next issue of Bitterroot, like I'm not gonna, and I probably won't read it issue by issue. So 9 times out of 10, I'll have to wait for that 4th trade to come out. I'm not gonna remember as much as I should because that one is a very, I think like that's a heavy one, not just in content, but like text wise, history behind, like it's a lot, and I don't remember explicit details. So there's that. But yeah, maybe we should just have like we need to have 1 month where everybody just catches up on series that they're behind on because Lord knows I'm behind on a lot of shit. Um that we have started on during our book club. Stuff that I haven't finished. But all right, y'all. Remember August 28th was the last Wednesday of August. 1, 2, and 3 of the Teacher Icon Society. I think for those of you interested, we should be doing another 30 and 30 in September as well. So if you plan on participating, I would gear up mentally for that. Because I need to mentally prepare myself for that. I'm not mentally there yet. And I have to mentally get there for 30 and 30. And I have to think about what that's going to look like for me in September. But yes, it is text heavy and content heavy, but such a good discussion about like how we process trauma and how that trauma is reflected in how we move through society. Like, it's a lot. And I love it. And I'm glad I got to meet Chuck Brown. But still, it's a lot. And Tia got me that nice, like that thick book of Bitterroot with all 3 volumes. I'll never open it, but the same way I have something is killing the children, the slipcase edition of it. Never will open it. There's just some things I just will never ever open. Never ever open. Craftathon. I know. If I wasn't so busy this year, I think I would want like that's something that I would love to do maybe next year. I know I can't fit it on my plate this year, but that's something that I would love to do next year. Right? Yelling, screaming. For what? You and your mama live in the same goddamn house. It is amazing. Oh, of course. Thanks for being here. By out September, October for booktube, semi challenge, 3 thoughts. Yeah, it is a lot. Um, It's only 2 for me, though, I think, for the rest of the year, which will be 30 and 30 in September, and then Blackoween in October. That'll be it for me for the year. And then not really, like, this will be the first year where, like, I'm not documenting Blackoween except maybe on Instagram because other channel's done. So there's that. Not you was looking around looking for, yeah, child, you're screaming at top of 10 o'clock at night. All right, y'all. Um, I will see y'all again at the end of next month. For that. In the meantime, share and discuss if you read any more in this universe. I probably will be sharing a little bit as I read them and kind of update on this channel. But let me know how y'all feel about them. And y'all have a good night, and I will see y'all soon. And thank you for joining me. Bree I never said anything, but Bree had some other stuff going on this evening, so she was not able to make it, but she might be with us next month. Thank you, Scott. I appreciate it. I think, some more rest in time and I'll feel a lot better. Good night, y'all.